I mean, the former president is at least potentially implicated in an ongoing federal grand jury criminal investigation into sending forged sets of fake electors to the Electoral College to keep him in power. There's a federal grand jury looking at that. He's also potentially implicated in another federal grand jury investigation into efforts to use the Justice Department itself to overthrow the election results from 2020 and keep him in power. A second federal grand jury is reportedly looking at that. He's also potentially implicated in another federal grand jury investigation, this one first reported in May by the New York Times, into the alleged serious mishandling of classified information by the former president. Now, the Times was first to report the existence of the federal grand jury investigation into this matter, but it was the Washington Post that was first to report 6 months ago in February that Trump had taken boxes and boxes and boxes of government documents and materials with him to South Florida, to his house club hotel thing called Mar-a-Lago. The Post reported, again, back in February, that many of the documents that he took with him to Mar-a-Lago were definitely and unequivocally classified. Now, that's important because there are criminal penalties that attach to mishandling or allowing unauthorized access to classified government documents. People get in trouble for mishandling classified government documents all the time. A Washington Post reporting team, led in part by Jackie Alemany, was first to report on how highly classified some of these documents were that Trump took with him to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, a classified document is a classified document, and criminal penalties sort of therein attach just by the fact that something is classified. But Jackie Alemany and her colleagues at the Post were first to report that some of these documents that he took were really, really, really classified. And we know that in part because the National Archives subsequently had to go retrieve them and make an inventory of what they found. Some of these documents were so classified, they couldn't even list them in an inventory. They couldn't describe what kind of documents they were if the inventory itself was going to be an unclassified document. Right? I mean, here's the headline from Jackie Alemany and her colleague Tom Hamburger from February 25th of this year. Quote, some records taken by Trump are so sensitive, they may not be described in public. Quote, some of the presidential records recovered from former President Donald Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago are so sensitive, they may not be able to be described in forthcoming inventory reports in an unclassified way. According to two people familiar with the matter who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss a sensitive topic, there are records at the very highest levels of classification, including some that can be viewed by only a small number of government officials. Quote, there are records that only a very few have clearances to review. The documents are so sensitive that officials may not be able to describe them in an unclassified way, according to the two people who spoke to the Washington Post. So in other words, one of the federal grand juries looking into former President Donald Trump has been looking into this issue of potentially mishandling classified information. The existence of the federal grand jury looking into that as a potential criminal matter was first reported in May by the New York Times. But the Washington Post reported back in February that what he took to Mar-a-Lago, these boxes and boxes and boxes of documents, which the National Archives tried for a long time to get back before they were finally able to get them from him. This is apparently some of this, at least, is stuff of such high classification that not only can you and I not know the content of these documents, you can't know any of the words that are in the document. You can't know about the existence of the document. You can't have the type of document it is described to you unless you have a very high-level government clearance. It's that classified. And that's what he took to, like, the golf club thing, or whatever it is, the supper club. Whatever it is, his gold thing in South Florida. The New York Times is reporting tonight that it is the classified documents investigation that led to today's FBI raid, that led to the execution of this search warrant at the former president's property. It was Jackie Alemany and her colleagues at the Post who first reported the existence of this problem and its seriousness. As we continue to follow this breaking news story tonight, it is a remarkable advance in this story that the FBI is taking public-facing steps in this investigation. We've known this investigation was underway for several months. Them executing this search warrant today in South Florida has all sorts of implications as to the seriousness of this matter. In broad historical terms, today will always be the day that you and I and all of us learned that a former president of the United States had been raided by the FBI. Joining us now is Jackie Alemany, investigations reporter for The Washington Post. Ms. Alemany, thank you for being with us tonight. This feels like maybe not full circle, but quite a ways around the arc from your initial reporting.
Thanks so much for having me.
I know that you and your colleagues have been continuing to report this story. You were first to break the news of this scandal 6 months ago. What do you understand about the latest here, about the scope of the FBI's action and what it says about this investigation as a whole?
Yeah, Rachel, well, we're trying to get new details right now. And what we've heard so far is that which the former president confirmed himself, is that the FBI did raid the premises today. This is an especially newsworthy development, though, because obviously 6 months ago, we reported that the National Archives had sent people down to Mar-a-Lago to recover about 15 boxes worth of documents, classified information, and various mementos, things, records that belong to the American people from former President Trump. The FBI revisiting him today indicates that there might have been documents that have yet to have been recovered. But we have no reporting yet on what exactly might have been taken, what FBI agents were looking for. But some new reporting that we do have is that the inventory that was turned over to the FBI of those 15 boxes was actually 100 pages long. And that was only of the unclassified information, unclassified items that were improperly taken. Although if you asked any archivist, they would say that that information is just as important to our historic record as some of the classified information that was taken. We have a source telling us that if you quantified the unclassified version of the classified inventory, which would be a separate inventory from the list of unclassified items, that it would be around 3 pages long. But the source added that volume is just one way to quantify the damage that might have been done, and that even just 1 page or one portion of a top secret or classified item that might have been improperly archived could do very grave damage to national security of the U.S.
Let me make sure that I understand this. So the National Archives was able to retrieve about 15 boxes of material from Mar-a-Lago already. They then produced 2 different inventories of that material that they recovered and handed it to the FBI. A 100-page inventory of just the unclassified material that was improperly taken, and then a 3-page inventory of the classified material that was taken. And that, again, the National Archives made that inventory and gave it to the FBI. Is that right?
That's right. We don't actually know how many inventories exist overall, but we do know of at least 2 unclassified inventories, one of the unclassified items and then the unclassified version of the classified items, because even describing classified items can sometimes needs to be classified. And these are rough estimates around 100 pages worth of items. We actually have some descriptors of some of the unclassified items, things like birthday dinner menu was taken, schedules, calendars, speeches, agendas, talking points. We're still digging into this again every minute. I'm sitting here getting text messages and new intel just as we speak, but it's helping at least, understand the full scope of what the FBI could be looking for here.
I don't want to keep you. I know this is this is a story you're actively working on right now, and I promise I will not keep you too long so you can look at all those texts and advance your work with your colleagues. But I do want to make sure that I understand what we know about this in terms of the National Archives and what they've done already. Did the National Archives have a fight with Trump over some of these things that he did not believe were improperly taken, that he thought he had a right to? Was it hard for them to get stuff back from him? Is that perhaps the origin of any things that were held back? That sort of a conflict, the origin of any things that were held back by him that the FBI might have been looking to retrieve today?
So that is a really good question. And clearly you have been reading the reporting extremely closely, because 6 months ago when we first broke this story, the reason why it actually became an issue was because the National Archives, as they do for the public record, is they go through all of the documents from a presidency, put it all together, make sure it's very clearly organized. And during that process, which takes decades, there are still at times these archivists are going back to former presidencies that, in the 70s and the 80s is when they find new historic records that need to be preserved correctly. But what they realized when they were going through the Trump White House's record was that there were documents that were missing, that were publicly known and fairly infamous, had gained notoriety throughout the course of the Trump presidency, including, for example, that letter from Kim Jong-un, that the North Korean dictator that famously wrote former President Trump a letter while he was in office, that it was missing from the records. And that prompted them to get in touch with Trump's counsel that was representing him post-presidency to say, hey, guys, we're missing a bunch of records. Do you have them? There was then back and forth that was fairly extended. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite remembering the time period, but this is a president that left the White House in January, and these records were not retrieved until the beginning of this year. So there was some extensive back and forth, and the former president was very reticent about giving up some of these documents. And the volume of 15 boxes alone was quite an astonishing number at the time. And there was, in that back and forth, an agreement that the former president would continue to hand over documents as they found them.
Jackie Alemany, investigations reporter for The Washington Post. Again, I know that you are in the middle of ongoing reporting on this story, which, of course, you and your colleagues helped break from the first place. Call us back over the course of this hour as you learn more. Obviously, we're going to be covering this as closely as we possibly can. Thank you.